On tonight's show, we have publicist and media expert Ulysses Carter. And now for your host, KoolKard. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. This is episode 23. Last week we had Selena Watkins on. She is like a renowned dancer, fitness instructor, master of movements. Man, she does everything. She's performed at the Super Bowl with Shakira. She's done so much. So you guys make sure you go check her out on the gram, Selena Watkins. Let me not forget, she has a dance exercise called Soulconomics, which is kind of going crazy right now. She's teaming up with Women's Health Mag and doing classes, and she has her own classes. Y'all make sure y'all go check her out. Soulconomics.com, SOCA-nomics.com. Y'all check her out. It was a great show, great conversation. Like she said, the only thing that was missing was the wine. So it was a really good interview. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, this week, moving on, 23 MJ episode. All right. And I got somebody that has done some great things like MJ himself. We're going to be talking publicity, entertainment, PR, media, all that kind of stuff today because I got my brother, Ulysses Carter, coming on. And yeah, it's going to be a good one. So y'all stay tuned. Let me go ahead and give his little intro like I like to do, and we'll bring the brother on. All right, let's get it. Welcome to the show, my brother. And I mean my brother for real. What's happening, man?
What's going on, KoolKard? Thank you for having me.
Oh, man. Hey, I'm chilling. You know, we just kicking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, due time, finally got you on the show. I've been begging this dude since December to come on my show so we could talk.
Of last year,
right. Been begging this dude, come on my show. Nah, I wasn't begging, but I know, busy guy. But finally I cornered him because he's quarantined. And yeah, here we are to talk a little media, publicity, talk about your life and everything that you got going on and all the things you've done. And to enlighten people. So let me just say this. For everybody who is tuning in for the first time, and you as well, I created this show to bring value to the viewers. So anyone who is wanting to, or even thinking about getting into media or PR, this show is for you. So I brought an expert on, a brother who's been in the business, over 30 years? Is that right?
Yeah.
Been in the business over 30 years. So if you're trying to get some information that has been withheld from you about how to go about doing this the right way and making a name for yourself and getting clients and business, you might want to take a seat and listen to this brother right here because he has the gems. All right? So my first question to you is, before I get your whole background and all that, my first question to you is, what is the role of a publicist?
A PR person, publicist, basically we are there to bring expertise to give publicity for that artist, that client, to get them exposure on what they're doing, whether they're singing, acting, whatever their current projects are, and to protect them in the media, basically.
Okay.
We become their guardian we keep them like the guardian.
So now, would you say that sometimes it becomes like a babysitting job if they're problematic?
Yes. It can be, but the overall thing is you're trying to make sure that they win and they get the coverage that they need.
Okay.
You do have some difficult clients, but with a PR person and the client, it's not as bad because you try to work with them because they need you just as much as you need them, but they need you more.
Right. So that leads into my next question. I was going to ask you, do you feel like the publicist is essential to the success of the client?
It works hand in hand. So it's like peanut butter and jelly. So, you need them both to mix together to help,
Okay.
You have to have their best interest at heart, and you have to just make sure you understand your client.
Okay. But what if the client makes it hard for you to do your job? Because I know you run into that or have run into that.
You You try to have frank conversations. I've always been the type of PR person, I'm going to be cut and dry.
Okay.
I'm not the best person with them. If their shit stinks, I'm going to tell you. And I'll let them know this is not benefiting me. This is benefiting you because you need the numbers. You need people to come to your concerts. You need people to buy your music. You need people to tune in to watch your show.
Right.
You need people to buy your book to read it because that gives you exposure out there.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, you need me.
Yeah. Okay. So how did you get your start in PR? Let's just double back to that question, the typical question, but we want to, the viewers probably want to know, how did you get your start? And how'd you get your start?
Mine was, I did an independent I originally wanted to become a disc jockey.
Oh, really?
I did radio in high school and college.
Okay.
And while I was in college, I wound up doing an internship for an independent PR firm called Pretty Special. And I was already a personable person. So under the tutelage of Priscilla Chapman, Judy Hudson, and Tony Green, I learned the business basically of like the ins and outs of PR and marketing and stuff like that. So I was getting in tune to that. So I was like, oh, I like this. It's like you're working to get to something, to a finished product, like trying to get them on a cover or something, or an article, right, on TV. So I was liking that because it's giving you something to work to do.
Right. And
you feel accomplished at the end of it.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'm really, really liking this, and then I was like, okay. But it has its pitfalls, but it's fun at the end. It's fun at the end of the day because you're making relationships.
Right. And I guess it's kind of like a day-to-day challenge to kind of see what you can get for or gain for your client, right? The artist or whoever.
Yeah,
it is, right?
And Card, every day was something different. So not every day was not the same mundane type things, because I could be on the phone trying to get them on a TV show, or I could be trying to get them in a magazine cover, or I could be trying to do something else. It's like every day was a different challenge. So when I came home, I was like, okay, I had a good day, I had a bad day. Because some conversations could be, oh, I don't want your client right now. They don't fit the demographic we want.
Yeah.
And you just got to go other avenues and stuff like that.
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you, like, what are some of the challenges that you've been up against to get a client a job? Like, what's the resistance that you get? And you say demographics, but what other things? Is it like reputation? They're like, nah, we kind of doesn't fit our brand, like type of stuff like that. Like,
if it's an independent artist, if it's a new artist out there, you're trying to give them exposure. Because I'll give you an example of, like, remember when Destiny's Child first came out and no one knew who they were?
Yeah.
And like just trying to get them out there and stuff like that. And now they were everywhere.
Yeah.
It's that persistent thing that you got to do, like, oh, I may not get them on the cover or something, but can I get a little article on them, and can I build from that? And it's about your reputation, because you have to keep relationships.
Yeah.
At that time of the industry, before social media, it was about building relationships with the editors, and the photographers and the managers and stuff like that, where you went to lunch, you met with them, you brought your client and let them meet them and stuff like that. So they had a better idea of, like, okay, I see them fitting in this type of magazine. Because if you're an independent person and I'm taking you on, I need to know your fun things like you like to do, your private stuff, because then I want to know. I'll give you an example. Like, if you loved cars, I would try to also pitch you for a car magazine.
Oh, okay.
If you like gardening, if you smoked weed, I mean, I make a joke. If you shoveled, I get you on the cover with a shovel, shoveling on that magazine if I have to,
Right.
Because there was always, at that time, magazines and publications and different things that was open for different aspects of what you did in the business. Okay. So if you wrote a book, I would try to get you reviews in New York Times or get you on a talk show to talk about your book. Mm-hmm. If you were in a health and fitness, I pitched those health and fitness magazines. Okay. And stuff like that, because that's the demographic that you fit in. But then I can try to push it to a further thing. Like for females, it was female clients was easier because I can pitch them for hair magazines and health magazines and other things on top of that. So it's all according to what type of client I was working with. And I always did better working with female clients.
Oh, wow. Why is that? Why do you think?
Well, at that time, it was more publications to shop them around.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I said, a hair magazine, a sports magazine.
Yeah, there were a lot.
Yeah,
there were a lot back then.
Yeah, so it was like so many publications.
Yeah, so many hair magazines and urban magazine or whatever magazine. There was a lot of magazines. Yeah.
Yeah, because what I used to do is there used to be this universal newsstand. And I used to go to this newsstand where like every magazine known to man was in there, from international magazines to local ones and stuff like that. I would read those and find out who the editors were, because every magazine had a letterhead.
Right. Yeah. So that was back when the world wasn't so digital.
Yeah. Because some of my PR colleagues on there, if they remember, there used to be this green book. It was like this green book that had like all the information. Every year would come out where it would have all the information on all the editors and directors and stuff like that. So we went to this book as our go-to, and that was like our encyclopedia in the industry.
Oh, wow.
And if it wasn't in there, because heads were changing at that time, sometimes you went right to the magazine and you found the letterhead and you read who was in there. And a lot of times there was a trick to what I learned from Priscilla and Tony was find out who the editor was for that department, right? Mm-hmm. But the key thing was find out who the assistant was to the editor, because you establish a relationship with the assistant. That's the one that was the gatekeeper to get you to the editor. Right.
Okay. So you are essential. So like you're very essential to the client, because it's like your reputation matters. Because if your reputation sucks, your client doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
And, because that was always the fun time, because if I'm sending music or stuff, to that editor or whatever to do a review, I'd probably send something else to the assistant, be like, yo, I sent you a copy too, so you can have it. And then what winds up happening is that assistant is talking to their boss, and they're like, oh, did you check out such and such? And they're like, oh, okay, well, let me check it out. Since you like it, let me love it. So, and then you get the phone call like, Ulysses, you got to open it right here. Call in, blah, blah, blah. They want to, I'm like, hey.
Yeah.
It's about keeping those relationships and following up.
30 years in the business, boy. Like, hey, Therese Michelle, she's on here going hard for you. She says, you're one of the best in the biz and an overall great human being. And then she was saying, PR is essential to public image and damage control. True.
Yes.
And then she says, Ulysses anticipates the needs of his clients. This man knows everyone. So, I was saying 30 years in the business, brother, you gotta... You have an encyclopedia.
Therese is my heart. She's my industry sister. She's my sister in this game, and we work together because as we go further on, because we're working together now on current projects now, because I'm one of the co-producers of her show. She does in the basement with Javon and Therese that comes on Wednesday nights.
Okay, yeah. I've seen you post about that.
Yeah,
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, behind the scenes and stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, thank you for tuning in, Therese. That's her name, right, Therese?
Therese, yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate you tuning in. Really do. And commenting and interacting. So yeah, that's good. So let's talk about your time at Arista, because now, well, let's put this on the table, because we talked about this. You are, to me, you're always going to be a publicist, but you've moved on to entertainment exec. You're doing a whole array of things. You freelance work, consulting work, right? Mm-hmm. But let's talk about Arista, because that's where you got kind of like your foothold, right?
Yeah, that's where I learned the belly of the business, because and how I got that was, again, a relationship. When I was at Pretty Special doing internships, I wound up meeting the senior VP of Human Resources, Sandra Williams, and we used to go to movie screenings a lot, and we wound up like always at the same movie events and stuff like that. So there was an opening that was at Arista at the time.
Okay.
She happened to call me. I came over to her office. We're sitting in the office for 2 hours. She's like, "Oh, by the way, let's just go upstairs and go meet your new boss." I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
So then I'm in publicity. I'm in the publicity department. Wow. And I'm starting to learn under the tutelage of like Gwendolyn Quinn, Laura Swanson, Donna Torrance, and stuff like that. So I'm starting to work on these campaigns where I'm working on Whitney Houston's campaign, Aretha Franklin's campaign, TLC's campaign, anything that came out of the face. And I had already knew Sean Combs, but I was not working on the bad boy stuff because that was in a way of a conflict of interest, because I was like, I know him too well. Mm-hmm. So, but I was working on those, like I would do pop stuff like LFO, rock stuff, like there was like Patti Smith and stuff like that. So I would be involved like in all those projects.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I learned under that, and being under that tutelage of them and being under Clive Davis's umbrella at that time in the industry, it was like, you work for where? Which record label?
Right. Arista was everything.
Yeah,
I remember that, man. That was good. That was a good times, man. In the 90s, Lord Jesus, those were good times.
Because every week when Billboard came out, we basically had 8 artists on the top 10.
Yeah, they ran the charts.
It was on Arista, LaFace, or Bad Boy. It was an Arista artist.
Yep, ran the charts. Those are some good times, boy.
Yeah,
good days.
Good times. Yeah, and those were good connections because like we were always at events and stuff like that. And again. Yeah. Building those relationships, like those editors and stuff that I met to get articles and stuff like that, they came to those events. But what happened was, once I went to Arista, I had a brand behind me.
Yeah.
So then that's when they would accept my phone calls because I'm calling from a record label.
Right.
So like I watched like, wow, I went from an independent PR firm to a major record label. To go, okay, but I still established those relationships. I didn't become cocky or anything. It's like, yeah, I'm working at the label, but at the end of the day, it's still business.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I had to learn how to cater to the editors and all of them, make sure press was always informed and just let them know I'm working for you basically in a way. Not like kissing their butts, but basically I'm working for you because you need to do a really good article and a review on my client here.
Right. So give us a little peep into like the process of working on a campaign or your day-to-day at the label working on a campaign. So say you're working on
Deborah Cox.
Deborah Cox
or somebody. Well, let's say we wanted Deborah Cox for a particular magazine. Mm-hmm. We would have to reach out to those editors because we may want to get a photo shoot done, or we may want to get an article on her. So we'd have to send. At that time, we had press kits where we would put the picture in and different materials on the artist, and we'd have to send that physically in the mail to the label. And let's say I mailed it on a Monday. By Wednesday or Thursday, it should be in their office. So by then, I'm on the phone talking to the assistant, be like, hey, did your boss get the package or whatever? And sometimes I put little notes on it too, like, hey, such and such, hey, let me know, hit me up, let me know you got this. It's like, our new artists and stuff like this. And a lot of times I get the phone call back or an email real quick saying, hey, I got the press kit. Let's have a discussion.
Okay.
And then from there, the ball would start rolling.
Wow.
Yeah. And then once we solidified, like, okay, well, she's going to get a cover or she's going to get a feature article on there. Then I'm on the phone with the artist and their management, letting them know, okay, look, this artist has a photo shoot. They have to be there at such and such a time. We're getting this stylist to come in. And it was like an ongoing thing. And this could be like for 3 and 4 artists a day. So it could be like, okay. Yeah, I could be juggling 3 and 4 artists projects a day.
Was that stressful, or was it just kind of just the job?
It was a part of it. It was a part of the job. I would get in there like at 9:30 in the mornings, and I'd sometimes be in the building till like at midnight, and then I have to turn right back around.
Dang.
But it was fun because your adrenaline was up. You were like enjoying this.
Yeah.
And I also had interns working for me.
Okay.
And one thing I had always chose to was to have interns that were seniors in college. That was my preference because they would have like one class and the rest of the day they'd be at the label with me.
Yeah. And they're going to work hard because they're looking for a job.
Yeah.
They're looking for that opportunity, their foot in the door. So they're going to work hard for you.
Yeah. And but what I chose to do, some PR people were different. I was one where if I went to a photo shoot, you went with me too.
Okay.
You went into some of the meetings with me because I needed you to know. Because let's say I'm working with 3 artists that one day. Let's say I'm with Deborah Cox one day, and then there's something else going on with another artist. I can't be in 3 places at once. So if you call and you get my intern, they're just on top of everything too. So it's, oh, well, Ulysses left me this and blah, blah, blah. And it's a trust thing.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they love to work for you then.
Yeah. And what's so funny is like, as I look back, one intern, she wound up working for Patti LaBelle's management company. There was another one who winded up becoming a writer for the New York Times and the Daily News. And she used to do radio stuff like as a correspondent on WBLS.
Wow.
And those were my interns.
So that's kudos to you, man, because you trained them, you groomed them, and they went on to do great things.
Yeah. But it's also being humble because my backstory is the industry's been in my life all of my life since I was 2 years old. My uncle was the comedian Flip Wilson.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up every summer going to his house, hanging out with him on the road. He had the Flip Wilson show, so being backstage with all those people and stuff like that. And a lot of people didn't know he had bought into 2 franchises, which was Benihana.
For real?
Yeah, so on Friday nights, we would go to Benihana. And when we walk in, can I tell you, Card, that he knew everyone from the busboys to the chef. Everyone he knew. He knew their names, he knew their family dynamics, and I was just watching that. So because you learn from watching and you watch from the example. He would always tell me, like, everyone here just has a title. Yeah. And he said, that doesn't change anything. They're all human beings.
All people.
He said, you treat the person that, delivers your food the same way you treat the owner of the restaurant.
Absolutely.
Because he said, you never know down the road, that person may offer you a job down the road. And it's certain like gems he taught me and stuff like that. He always said, it's a decision. If you're in a ditch and if you're walking by and you need help, either a person's going to put their hand down there or they're going to take their foot and kick dirt on you.
Yep. Yeah, which one are you going to be? Exactly.
I've always wanted to be the person that, here, please take my hand, help me up, so yeah.
So tell me, I don't know how you feel about answering this question, but can you give us a list of, some of the notable people that you have worked with? I know you named a few, but.
Like I said, TLC, Deborah Cox, LFO, Angie Stone, Aretha Franklin.
Forgot about Stone, man.
Angie Stone, yeah. Carl Thomas, 112. That was at the label, and of course Whitney Houston. Okay. And at that time, working for her, we all had to work a project because she was the queen of Arista Records. Arista Records.
Right.
And then at one point, I wound up making a transition from the label to work directly for her at her management company.
How'd that happen? Did she kind of steal you away, or is that something you?
The conversation again, having conversations and relationships, having a conversation with Lynn Volkman, who worked there, going back, having those conversations, and they knew me. Her mom had knew me from a little boy. Oh. With Michael, so they knew me there. So coming in, it was a trust factor. It's like, you already worked for the label, so you already know the ins and outs. So we're not worried about stuff getting out.
So how did Clive feel about that?
Well, at that time, that's when Clive was making that also. He was making a transition out of Arista at the time because he was getting kicked out.
Oh, okay.
So at that time, also L.A. Reid was coming in, and so it was a big transition. We didn't know who was going to come in and stuff like that. So it was like a life raft or preserver was thrown to me, like, "Hey, come on board here."
On here, yeah, okay. And Clive went on to start J Records after that, right?
Yeah, he went to prove himself with J Records and stuff like that with Alicia Keys, and he took a few people with him.
Yeah.
But it also helped me. Then I transitioned from a label to a management company. So, which was, when you worked for the label, you had to check everything with the management company of those artists because they gave the final call on that. Now I was like, I'm in the management company of this artist, and I'm still have my relationship with the people at the label. So it was a win-win situation across the board.
And so my question to you is, what is the major difference between the two? Working at a giant label or a company and kind of, I don't want to say that was freelance because you work with a management company, but I know you do freelance now. So what's the difference, or the major difference between working for Arista and working for a smaller management company and working freelance?
Well, this time you had at that time working for her manager, it's one artist. So I'm working specifically for that artist. Okay. And you're focused just on that. So all your work is tunneled into that. So I don't have to worry about, okay, I'm dealing with, this pop act and this R&B act and this one. So I'm focused on one client and one client only. Okay. The aspects of what they want to do, which hones you in. It's like, oh, okay, well, fine. That's my focus. Yeah. Not all over the board. So is it less stressful because you're not all over the board? It's just my focus is her. Yeah, it's less stressful because you're focused on that particular subject or that client or whatever. But then from there, being there, I was able to branch off a little bit, while still being there, but I was able to pick up independent stuff, independent work while working with her, because I was able to then pick up independent clients who are working with Michael K. Williams from HBO's The Wire and Lance Reddick that was on The Wire. Okay. Picking them up. And then because I'd worked with singers and I had a relationship a while ago with Melis'a Morgan, R&B songstress, Freddie Jackson winded up doing PR for him too. So I was like, hey, I'm still having fun. Yeah. So it was like, okay, it was basically like consulting work. So I was like, I may work on a particular project, but it was fun because I was so used to doing so many clients. I was like, okay, well, this is fun now. Do you feel like you have more freedom? Yeah. More freedom. In what way? You have more freedom because you are using your relationships and you're making the shots with your independent artists, because you're answering to yourself. You're calling the shots pretty much. You make the decisions. You decide who you want to go after to get the cover of the magazine or whatever, right? But you still work with that artist to you hone them, but it's more intimate, more personal with them. Right. It's like, okay, well, let's work together. It's one big machine, but now it's just me one-on-one with you and using my contacts and you using your contacts, and we all come together, try to win that big push to get you out there. I would think it's just probably a better situation, because I'm pretty sure you become friends with the artists or your clients because it's a one-on-one type of thing. And well, if they allow it or if they're open to it, I can't say. Well, here's a nugget, because I always try to remind people, you have to separate your relationships with your clients. Mm-hmm. Those are my clients. Those are my associates and stuff like that. There's a difference between, yes, I'm friendly with my client, but I'm not your friend, because then that opens up a door where they're not listening to you. True. Some artists would, invite me to the house for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. Like, no, I appreciate it. Thank you. But no, you didn't have my home phone number. You can only get me on my cell phone, because there's a point where if you open that door, there's no turning back. Yeah, absolutely. And it's always this old statement of staying in your lane. Yeah. Because nowadays there are PR people who there are PR publicists out there now that need a PR person for themselves, because they're just as big as their client. I know. What's that about? But you know what? It works good now, because right now, because of social media, a lot of new clients, they want to know, well, how is your social media following? Because that helps me. Oh, okay. Okay. Artist now, because it's just changed. It's like a 180. Like, wow. Okay. Are you still taking on clients? No. I have my core ones that I still work with. R&B singer Monifah. Okay. Freddie Jackson and Melis'a Morgan, I'm still doing independent stuff for them. And those are the ones that I'm working with. A while back, I would do some tour press. Like, I got called for Universal Records at one point. Mm-hmm. My consulting work I may do, because that's not long term. Right. But I have to decide if I'm comfortable with it, because I've always chose not to take on a client for the paycheck. I had to believe in the artist or believe in the project to go, because I want to give my all to it.
That was gonna be my next question too. I was gonna ask you when you were taking on new clients, like what do you look for? What's your criteria to say, you know what, I'd be interested in working with this person?
I want them to be as transparent as possible with me, because if I sit down with you, I want to be able to talk to you, find out what you like to do, what don't you like. Mm-hmm. You just have to be as honest as possible, because I have to protect you as a PR person.
Right.
Because if you tell me you're doing this and then you're doing something else and it gets back to me, how can I save you in the press? I'll give you an example. Damian Dash. Grew up with him and stuff like that. It was one time I got a phone call, "Oh, Ulysses, I would love for you to do my PR." No. I said, "I like to sleep at night, Dame. I like to sleep at night."
Dame was a wild boy.
Yeah. It's like, are you taking on, because it's like, "Oh, I'll pay you this, I'll pay you this." Like, no. It was about my own solitude. Sometimes it's about that. It's your sanity. Like, because sometimes it can be very stressful. Because a lot of people see like the end result. Like you'll see the artist on the cover of the magazine, or you'll see them at the show, but you don't know what it leads up to. There could be sometimes where an artist doesn't want to go out for an interview. They don't want to they don't want to get to the photo shoot on time. They don't want to do rehearsal at a particular award show. So you have to deal with that and like getting them out their hotel room, or they may have some personal family problems. What is
the thought process behind an artist that always wants to show up late on purpose? What's the thought process behind that?
At one point, because they feel that their shit don't stink.
And everybody's just gonna wait on them.
Or some artists are so used to the yes persons, like, "Oh yes," and blah, 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 and kissing it behind. It's like, but then you have to have somebody in your camp that's gonna be like, "Look, this is how it goes. And this is how it goes." I used to do a trick where, let's say there was a photo shoot at 3:00. I would tell the client, 2:00, because again, having that relationship with management, because a lot of times you would have a conversation with the management of that artist and be like, "Look, they're coming to a photo shoot late. That photographer's already in place. Mm-hmm. All the people are there. This is money coming out of their budget.
Yep.
And they're losing this money. Don't you realize this?" I used to have conversations with particular artists where you're going to a recording session. You don't need to bring 20 people with you to record.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because all that money is coming out of your budget.
Yep. I've seen that way too many times.
Yeah, and they don't want to hear that. Some people didn't want to hear that, or like, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing that." I remember I told one particular client, they went out to dinner and they had 10 people with them. They expected the artist to pay for the bill. I told this client, "Leave the restaurant. Go back to your hotel. See who picks up the bill. That's the person that's in your camp. That's for you."
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the hang-ons. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Wow.
You have to be as very transparent and honest with your client. You really, really have to, because again, it's a trust factor. You have to establish a trust with them.
What would make you drop a client?
Nonsense and not listening, and you messing up my relationships with particular editors or directors or something. Like you're bringing my reputation down.
Yeah. For what? Not showing up on time? For just
being difficult? You don't want to do an interview? Yeah, because I built those relationships, because my thing is there's other artists I may want to work with that are coming behind you that I may need to go back to those publications or those shows to go, "Oh, can I book this particular artist?" They'll go, "Oh, no, Ulysses, because your client X did this and did that, and we lost money." Yeah. What makes, like, any client that you come in, they're always going to have that attitude. So it represents your whole group. You have to look at it's a whole thing. Your inside circle determines everything. Sometimes it's not the client. Sometimes it's the people in your camp that can mess it up too. But it reflects on the artist.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why you got to roll solo or a small circle. Why you want to roll with 10 people, 5? Like, it doesn't make any sense. 5 people if they're all doing a job, But if they're not doing anything.
See what you said? A job. It is at the end that you have to remember, it is a job you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not just socializing, you're having fun. There's time for all of that, but if you're working, people forget that show business is what? 90% business,
yeah.
10% show.
Yeah.
Even though it's not as corporate as possible, but it's still corporate, like a corporate whole chain right there.
Yeah.
We're just a little bit more relaxed with stuff, but it's still business at the end of the day.
Everybody thinks about the partying and all that other stuff, but yeah, business at the end of the day.
It's not what it's caked up to be. It's really not what it's caked up to be.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
so you get the artists that party all the time. Those are the ones who probably aren't as focused and won't be here long, But the times you do see the greats partying, they're
partying for a reason, because they're there to promote their project. Yeah. I've had some independent clients where I've been at parties and like you've been in VIP. I've stood there and like to protect them. I've taken the drink out of the hand and put a bottle of water instead. It's a good look.
Yeah.
Because at that time, that's when social media was starting to really kick in. And the cameras are coming out and, like, hey.
Yeah. You had to babysit.
Personal time, but when it's business, fine. But we can celebrate after, after things, but there's a certain level. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. The only time they should be out is business, really. I can't say that, but most of the time, if it's not business, you gotta lay low.
But some people want to be seen and heard, and that's why we have, unfortunately, in this industry, they have like labels of A-list clients, B-list clients, C-list clients, and D-list clients. And I hate the fact that we have to put these artists in different categories like that.
Yeah.
Like, how can you get your client to become an A-lister if you're not allowing me to get them on the shows and getting me in the magazines and stuff like that if you don't give them a chance?
Right.
And now it's even harder because we don't have a lot of publications now. Everything is a lot of things are online.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of bloggers now. But since we've been in quarantine, I know people have been on their Instagrams and their Facebook lives. Now you're seeing a lot of the artists. They're doing a lot of live stuff because they got to promote themselves. They got to keep busy.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to keep them on people's minds. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what's so funny is now, because at that time when I was in the business, remember, it was a part where you didn't know the personal stuff about an artist. You only knew the musical aspect, TV, and their personal stuff was like, it was either in a magazine, or in an interview, you found like a little bit. But now they control their own narrative of their social media.
And back then, artists were able to stay out of trouble a little bit more. Because now some of them don't have any filters, and they just don't know any better. And it's like, oh, you just did that, and now you catching all this and using endorsements and that. And they didn't even mean anything by it, but they just don't have any filter. Didn't know any better.
Yeah, and if you tweet it out, it's there forever. Even if you delete it, it's there forever. Because somebody has screenshot it, and next thing you know, it's
around the world.
Yep.
Around the world in a couple seconds.
Yep.
Crazy.
Exactly.
Crazy, man. It's a different world, boy. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's a different world. I don't know, it feels so different now from the 90s until now. When I was back in New York and music was just different. The whole industry was just different. It's a different feel, man. I'm not too deep into it anymore because I'm not doing the music and all that, but I can still feel it though. You know what I mean? Because I keep my ear to the streets. I still feel it. It's just a different energy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't call it, but it's different.
And even the talent is different, Card, because it's now because you get notoriety for Instagram. Anything now. What happened to the artistry of an artist? Because it's crazy. Because I like working better with our classic artists that have talent. Yeah. That at the end of the day, they can still open their mouth and sing. If they can sing a cappella or Pro Tools breaks down, they don't have to worry about they could just sing.
Right. I think the screen froze up on us. I can still hear you, but I think the screen froze up on us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, hey, things happen live. You know, it's technical stuff, but as a PR person, you got to keep it going and keep it moving.
Yeah, for sure. I can hear you, so we can still talk. But yeah, good. Absolutely. I was just talking about that with somebody. Like, it's just so different now. Like, back in the day, who would ever think that someone would be calling a reality star a celebrity, a star? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And like that's not to discredit anybody, but it's just like, you know, you can get anybody to get on a TV show and just act crazy or whatever, and it's like now this is the new age celebrity. This is the definition of a celebrity now. It's just a little different.
Yeah, and those are clients that I don't want to work with.
Yeah, man. I
couldn't work with them at all. You couldn't pay me to work with them. No.
You were there in the glory years, man. That's why.
Yeah. When the industry was so much fun.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
It was definitely fun. Yeah, it was definitely fun. I want to know what. Here's a question for you. As far as now, like, since the industry has changed, do you feel like it's easier to find more sustainable freelance work as a publicist or somebody in media because there's so many independent artists who are kind of doing their own thing and paving their own way without a label?
It's a little harder now because sometimes you don't even need a publicist because you're doing your own publicity on social media.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so you're doing that, but there's some artists that want some of those publications, which are not a lot of anymore, and especially like for African American clients, there's not a lot of publications or outlets for them to be seen at, unless they're A-list people.
Right.
So the self-promotion, because now it comes to the point where what does your social numbers look like and stuff like that, and then like the bloggers would be like, oh, okay, well, let me chime in and get an article on them. And because now with print used to be 2 months in advance. Everyone wants everything fast and easy. So if something comes out in a magazine a month later, you've already heard about it 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
So it's old news now.
Yep.
So it's about instant. It's about the microwavable stuff.
Everything is instant. Everything, like even like singles only last for what, 2-3 weeks, maybe.
If that, yeah, because now no one's now doing albums or see, you know, you may do an EP where now there may be 4 or 5 records, because at the time when I was at a label, you got signed to like a 3 to 4 CD deal.
Right. Yeah, you were stuck there for albums. If something happened and you were unhappy and you had to deliver 3 more albums, well, guess what? You ain't going nowhere.
Exactly. But no one's making albums that are timeless anymore.
Nah.
Like to this day, you can put a Stevie Wonder album on still, and it's timeless. Where you want to put albums on where you can play it from track 1 all the way to the end without skipping.
Yeah. There's only a few now that you can say that have that quality of music. I don't want to say talent, but quality of music that, you know, you can just sit there and listen to the whole thing. It's rare, man. There's a few, but it's rare.
But it's a body of work.
And I think, but you know what though? I won't say that they're not capable. I think now it's just everybody's looking for the hit. I gotta get the hit single. And I think nowadays it's more. There's always been songs and an emphasis on money for artists, but I think it's just run rampant now. Like everything is about gotta get the bag, gotta get this money, gotta get this check. So now it's just like, what's the quickest thing or the quickest way, or what's the single I need to get this hit, you know, and travel around the world and get this money. Like I don't think there's a lot of emphasis put towards these albums, man. I really don't.
And then we don't have like that, because now at labels, there are people doing 3 and 4 jobs at one time, compared to there was a publicity department, a marketing department, an A&R department. Now you're all 3 people.
Yeah.
So, you know, you met with all the label heads where you brought that artist in. And it's like, okay, well, you're going to learn this from publicity. Then we're going to take you to A&R and develop you here. Get you done here in artist development.
Right.
It was a machine that worked with you as an artist.
Yeah.
Media training and all that other stuff. Now it's like, okay, well, you know, if you could set yourself on fire and sing the Star Spangled Banner in Spanish backwards, oh,
Right.
you're the hottest thing right now. Because my thing is like, who on Twitter can get on the top 10, you know, as the subject right now?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so different, man. It's so different. It's so different out here.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of artists that don't, like new artists that don't know who paved the way for them.
Yeah, they don't. Like, they really don't.
Yeah, you're getting samples and all this other stuff of older artists, but it's like, well, you know, learn your history of music and where this comes from.
Yeah, they're jamming. I mean, it's no different than when we were coming up. You know, in the 90s, you would hear all these old samples, and you know, it would take you to maybe watch a movie or just, I don't know, be at some random spot and hear the original record and be like, oh, okay, yeah. And then you kind of like have a recollection like, oh, wait, I did hear my pops playing that back in the day. Dang, I didn't know they sampled that. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing now, but now they're really oblivious to it. Like, who's that? What? Like, they haven't even heard of the artist. You know what I'm saying? At least we have heard of the artist. Like, oh, I didn't know that was a Al Green sample or you know, Stevie Wonder sample or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, but now it's oblivious. Like, you ask them, like, do you know such and such is like, that's such and such original? And they're like, ooh, what?
And see, Card, the beautiful thing is, I like to work with individuals now, like jumping into whatever I'm doing, where people still know music. Like, I just gotta do a plug for like my industry sister Tamika, she has a radio show now for independent artists out there, you know, under her Ginger Snaps and Purple Tea company, because she's the CEO of that. Okay. She's independent artists that have real artistry that labels are not seeing or people are not hearing on the mainstream music, where you can tune into her platform and hear that. And then the other platform is In the Basement, like I said, with Javon and Therese, where they're bringing you the classic artists and stuff like that, and information like that, to, you know, to go back in the crates and stuff like that. And that was a time of In the Basement when you heard good, real music.
Yeah.
And that feel good stuff, you know, that made you feel stuff that has lyrical content.
Yes. Man, I don't even talk about it no more to people, you know, about lyrical content and what it used to be back in like in the 90s. You know, they're like, oh, you just living in the past. Like, nah, man, you don't understand. You had to be there to live it. Like, I was in New York in the 90s, and that was it. Like, that was the mecca of it, man. It felt so good out there. Like, that was the times I'll never forget them times. I'll never forget how it felt. I'll never forget, you know, being in the clubs and hearing the new songs. I remember when music videos, it used to be a whole event, a week anticipation of the launch of a new like Missy Elliott video. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Anything. Yep. It was a world premiere. Yep. Because you home and you like at that time you had the Video Souls and you had the box and stuff like that. Friday nights you were home on a Friday night to watch Video Music Box.
Yep. That's so going way back.
But I'm just saying, but even the 90s, but even for me, the 70s, the 80s were still good for me, because I love the 80s and the 90s. Yeah. To me, that was my best time for music.
Absolutely, man.
And my personal thing is I'm a big house head, so I love house music.
Yeah. House was huge back then. Huge, man. And
it still is, but it's the classics that, you know, and the good thing is during this quarantine, some of those clubhouse DJs, they're on Instagram and Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and they're DJing for us and stuff like that, taking us back to like, those were the good old days at the garage and different places like that. So yeah, man. God, man, we need to somehow get that feeling back, restore the feeling, because I don't think that's going to come back. It's going to move on, because I think a lot of our millennials will never know how good it was at that time, how the industry was, and just how music and just how everything was. It was fun.
Like, and everything was quality, man. $1 million videos. The budget for a video was $1 million, $4 million. Like, these things were movies.
Yeah.
You know? And now videos looking like Instagram videos. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean, it is what it is, you know. But
yeah, you can do it from your phone. You could be in the park, and a lot of people do the gorilla type where they'll be in the selfie and they'll cut it here and they'll cut it there.
Yeah.
So hey,
that's what we are. Ain't knocking it, but back then, man, those videos like Hype Williams and Little X and all them, man, those videos were movies, straight up, little mini movies.
But I try to tell people that are coming into business now that at the end of the day, you still have to get your relationships built up with people.
Yeah, talk about that, because that was gonna be my exiting question for you. Like, for people who are now, getting into the business, like, what do you think are some of the key things that they need to know, or how should they maneuver, or what should they learn? Should they go to school for it? Like,
well, I still think in school, one biggest thing is writing.
Okay.
Continue writing, and not those little abbreviations and stuff like that you use when you're tweeting and you're texting.
Don't blog it, right?
No. And my thing is, like, English is a beautiful language. And writing, like your writing samples, because at that time when you were a PR person, you had to send writing samples, to editors and stuff like that. If you wanted to write, for certain publications and stuff like that, you had to send a writing sample to see that, you knew how to use the correct pronunciation for certain words.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore. I seen the thing on the news like several months ago. They want to bring back creative writing and stuff like that. Cursive writing, excuse me. So bring that back.
Yeah.
Because it's like a dinosaur now. So it's like, really? But my thing is, like, reading, researching, going to school, you have to learn marketing and PR, the whole thing across the board, but it's about your writing and your reading. Like, read a book. I don't think anyone reads a book anymore, because now we take that away, because now you have audios
and podcasts.
Yeah, you don't have to sit there and read a book. I'm still old school where I like to smell a book. I like to turn the pages.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't do the audio, man. I can't get into it. I gotta feel the book. Gotta, live through the pages.
Yeah, because it's just something about that. It's just, it's like you look forward to get to the end of the book, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, I ain't gonna hold you too much longer, man. I appreciate all the information. Man, you got a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this entertainment business and PR stuff, man. So I definitely had to have you on the show, my brother. You are my brother. So
if you need me again, let me know. We can do a part 2 of this if you need to.
We will. I'm gonna have a year-end wrap up. So I'll definitely have you back on. That's no question, no doubt. I got one question for you though.
Yes.
Did you dye that beard, or is that your real hair?
That's
because what, that thing looking like a snow globe, and us brothers, when we get older, we sometimes it's like pepper, salt and pepper, and that thing all the way white, man. What's going on?
And to your listeners and viewers, he's only asking this for you guys because he knows me personally. This is all natural, all natural.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's all mine. It's called wisdom.
Yeah, it is.
But I started gray early at 17. I started out with a patch, and then the next thing I know, bam, But I've been dubbed, by my girl Therese, the Silver Fox.
I can't say, listen, it suits you, man. It fits you well. It looks good on you.
I've embraced it. I love it. Once this quarantine is over, I definitely have to run to my barber, at least for some type of shape up, at least just to maintain it.
Are you going back bald, or you gonna keep the little white?
No. Well, you know what? I've had a lot of people telling me I need to keep the top gray hair, let it go on and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay.
Embrace it, brother.
Oh, I'm embracing it. Since your nickname for me is Grady.
Grady, looking like Grady off of Sanford and Son.
Yeah. So and if millennials don't know what Sanford and Son is, you definitely got to look that up. They're on TV One.
Yeah. Son, that's classic right there. Throwback. I still watch me some Sanford and Son for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. I really do. Everybody tuning in. Appreciate you guys coming in. Appreciate everybody commenting over the comment section. and sticking with us. We had a little freeze up on the screen, but you can still hear Ulysses. You know, for the better part of the show, we had him here moving around, and you know, but yeah, it did freeze up. But I'm glad that the audio kept going, so we could just keep the interview going. So you know, things happen. Who knows?
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah. But yeah, man, appreciate you, brother, tuning in. I appreciate you coming in. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Until next time, we got episode 24. Got a doctor coming on the next show, so y'all come back and check me out. What you finna get into, Ulysses?
Well, it's so funny because talking about reading, I'm still reading Alicia Keys' new book.
What's she talking about?
It's her personal diary book. So
okay.
She sent that to me. So while I've been quarantining, I've been reading more, meditating, stuff like that.
You gotta get centered. Gotta get centered, man. This is the time to do it.
Yeah.
This is the time to do it.
You have to do it. So, you know, to know what's the next thing. But I've still been busy, like I said, behind the scenes with, you know, being co-producer of, you know, In the Basement, you know, with Therese, and then also doing like the Carter Report sometimes with another independent internet radio show called Sugar Water Radio.
Okay.
You know, with Franchise and Zoe New Girl. You know, so I do their Carter Report on Thursday nights and Monday nights with them. So I'm constantly going to keep on my grind and, you know, keep my hustle on, because you just can't have one gig in this business.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
You got to have streams of income coming in.
Yes, sir.
You know? Because if you can't dance on the pole, you got to be able to clean it.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, I thank you, because I know you try not to be in front of the camera, so I do really appreciate you giving me your time.
No problem. I appreciate, because I'm always the person behind the scenes and stuff like that. And if anybody wants to hit me up, they can hit me up, slide up in my DMs on my Instagram, on my Facebook, you know, and holler at me.
Yeah, hit him up, Carter U 0809. He may change it to I am Ulysses Carter soon, so if you can't find him with that on Instagram, you can find him with I am Ulysses Carter. Also on Facebook, it's just Ulysses Carter, right?
Yes, it's just Ulysses Carter. Their best thing is to slide me with a message, because I think I'm up to my limit of accepting people.
Yeah, I don't know why there's a limit on Facebook. That's crazy. What is it, like 7,000 or something like that?
5,000.
5,000? Okay. Yeah.
So I guess they don't think people have more than 5,000 people.
Right. All right, brother. Well, hey, man, you have a good night. Everybody tuning in. Appreciate you once again. Be back here every Tuesday, 10 p.m. Next episode to the next episode to the next episode. If you got some value out the show, make sure you subscribe or hit the like button, thumbs up. All right. Tell a friend, share it. I appreciate y'all once again. And we out. Peace. Yes, sir.